In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to get all your negative feedbacks removed on your eBay account, seller account. I've been an eBay seller since 1999. I've been a full-time seller the last 7 years, and my account has been negative feedback free remaining for 5 years. Now, I use that word remaining because I've had probably 50 plus negative feedbacks removed in those 5 years. Some were easy, some were quick like that, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Some took a little bit of finagling, and I'll show you guys how to do that. So I'll go down line by line on what you need to do. Remember, they got 60 days from purchase to leave you a positive or a negative feedback. So remember, that 60 days is counting, right? So one thing I do is I put a package note in every one of my packages with my personal cell phone number on there. So you can see there what it says. It's got my phone number there on the top, and so it says, contact if there's any problems. Please choose contact seller on the menu. Do not choose return this item first because it'll leave me a defect. That used to be the case. It's not anymore. But I put that on there, and I've been a seller since '99, and I will leave no one disappointed. And I put my first name on there. The reason you want to choose contact seller first because you don't want them to return the item, click return the item anyway. Because I've recovered a lot of sales and resold the item to them when they either called me or they contacted me. They'll have questions or they'll think, you know what, I don't like the sound of this particular item. I don't, and then I'll literally, they'll call me or I'll call them or I'll contact them and I'll give them all the benefits. Hey, it's because there's items that I will sell multiples of, and I've gotten sales by doing this. Like I've saved sales. I've had people call me up where they were so disappointed with the item, and they talked to me on the phone, and they never did open up a request to return it. And I know I got the sale because they talked to me. They're like, I like you. I like you, Brandon. I'm buying from you. I'm not buying this product. I'm buying from you. I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but I know I've gotten sales from that, saved sales from that. So put a package note on there. I understand you might not want them calling you, but I sell a lot of items and I might get one phone call or two phone calls a week, and it's usually at a good time, right? And I want them to call me. I don't want them to return this item, whatever. I've saved tons of money in shipments and lost sales because of doing this. So consider doing it, or put your business phone on there, or what have you. All right, so that's first. Third thing I do is as soon as they buy from me, I'll do a bulk feedback, positive feedbacks on all my sales. Whether that be 20, 30, 40, 50 of them at a time. I'll leave them all positive feedback as soon as they buy. Now, you say, well, why would I do that? They haven't left me a positive feedback, right? The whole, reciprocity kind of psychology thing where, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. As a buyer, they did their obligation by sending you money. They already did their part. Your part now is to send them the item, right? So as soon as they pay, I give them a positive feedback. They see that as on good faith. They're like, well, this seller, he's not trying to manipulate me with feedback, So as a seller, you're not allowed to leave negative feedback anyway. So all the power and all the control is in their corner to begin with. All right. So you want to go ahead and just give that to them, And a lot of times they'll see that they'll send you a positive feedback sometimes without even getting the item yet. So I do that on good faith. Some people say, that they have less returns when they don't leave feedback first. But I don't know. That's just my way of doing business. Now here's another good one. I've made a specific video about this, and I'll link it on the end of this video. Buyers that ask too many questions, and they can be legitimate questions, to be honest with you. I'll let one question pass. If they're asking about an item before they have bought it, I'll let it pass. Answer the question. The second one, I'm a little bit skeptical, right? Sometimes I'll just block them depending on the question. And then the third question, I block them. I just block them, right? You can tell the way the buyer, you can tell the problem buyers by how they ask questions and that they ask questions, or there are too many questions. The great buyers are the ones that they're like quiet as a church mouse. You never hear from them again. You get the sale, bam, it's over with. These guys that ask these questions over and over, they're going to either return the item, costing you shipping, or they're going to leave you negative feedback. Block them. You know, you might even have a policy to block them after the first question. Statistically, it's probably a good decision. So I'm always very careful with when people ask me too many questions, I'll just block them. So that way you're preventing yourself a headache by blocking them, right? Some say, well, they could just use another account to buy with. Yes, but that's another hurdle that they have to go through that will protect you, that they won't go through, right? They'll just buy from somebody else. So think about that. And another good thing, when you place an item, when you create a listing, you want to be very detailed. You want to put good pictures, especially if it's a used item. And you want to write down every little scratch or nick in that item. Now, why do I say that? The reason is because you're actually trying to discourage some buyers. You don't want a buyer for your item. You want the right buyer. Okay, I'd rather go through 9 bad buyers or buyers that are a little bit, on the cringy side, and get that one good buyer that's like, yeah, I know it's got a scratch on it. No big deal, man. It's what I was looking for. That's who you want. You don't want the little nitpicky, oh, it's got a blemish on here or whatever. So you want to like literally tell them, don't buy from me. Please stay away. Don't buy from me. Look, it's got this nick. You don't really want this. You want to communicate that to your sale. Sometimes I will put at the beginning of my title used. Sometimes I will put in the beginning of my title rough condition, because that will automatically get rid of a lot of problem buyers that don't know what they're doing, or they don't know what they're buying, or they'll change their mind. You want the good buyer, the one that goes through all those little rigmaroles, and they're like, yes, I'm your person. That's who you want. So that's why I'm so detailed in my listings. I want to discourage people from buying. You don't want a buyer, you want the right buyer. All right, so when you get that negative feedback, all right, and we've all had it. I've had said, in the last 5 years, I've had over 50 negatives. First of all, don't panic. Just think of it as the cost of doing business. And number 2, don't get angry. Don't make it personal. Don't make it personal. The first thing you want to do is immediately get on that keyboard and start typing. I put that on the listing. Why are you saying it's got a blemish? I put that on the listing, right? Don't do that. Don't panic. It's business, right? It's business. Don't think of it personal, right? If it's an item that you keep selling, it's like multiples. Think about getting into a different product to sell. If it gives you too much of a headache. So don't make it personal. All right. Next, you go down to the listing, to the item number that the person bought from, and then what you want to do is go to order details. Order details under the listing. That's going to show you the person's name, their address, and their phone number. Okay. So you get the phone number. All right. And a lot of times I will contact them first, depending on the feedback. But I'll first look at their feedback, and I will see who they've left a negative for, if they've left any, and to see who I'm dealing with. Or if they've left all positive, then I was the only one negative, right? If you see a whole bunch of negatives, now you know who you're dealing with, right? It's a different kind of animal, and you might have to go to other extremes, but don't worry about it, right? Go ahead and go down that list and see who they've left a neg for, or positives. If you're the only neg, it's probably just a misunderstanding, or maybe you are at fault. I'm not saying, guys, that as a seller that you don't make mistakes. You could be at fault and still get that neg removed. All right, so call them up. Call them up. I'll usually call them up 9 times out of 10 instead of just leaving them a message. I'll call them up, and I'm looking for that name. If their name's John, the person answers. I'm like, yes, is this John Doe? And they're like, yes. I got them, guys. I got them. That's all you wanted. Because what that is, which includes this, you got that personal connection with them. It's not just about you being some pixel or some person off way in another state far away with no name, no face, no voice, you're nothing to them, right? But when they hear your voice and you hear their voice, there's something more intimate. It's like eating and breaking bread over a campfire. There's that bond, there's that connection, right? And what you're doing is you're reeling them in closer to you. And that's all you want. And I would say out of the 50 plus negatives I've had removed, probably 40, 45 of those 50 were removed because I got them on the phone. All right. First thing you do, though, you don't confront them and say, why did you leave me that negative? How dare you? Or whatever. Or don't be abrasive whatsoever. Be caring and loving in your voice, right? Say, oh, by the way, John, I'm so sorry that whatever they put on the neg. I'm so sorry that happened, man. Please, is there something that was wrong in the listing you let them talk, right? You let them talk and say, hey, man, I offer free returns because I offer free returns. Or, hey, I can take that back and we'll refund you, whatever, no problem, right? That usually solves it right there. Or if say, hey, John, let me ask you, will it make you happy, man, if I give you like a 30% discount or 20% discount? And see what they say, right? A lot of times they'll be like, yeah, man, that'd be cool. Don't mention the feedback until the very end, and they agree to it, right? And say, oh, by the way, John, you left me a negative. Is it possible if I send you a feedback change request? Which you can do that. You just Google or go on to eBay, type in feedback change request, right? There's a little special section there, and I'll probably put in the description where you can link it. But you go there, and it'll immediately show the listing that you have an egg. You can click on it and then send a request. Type something nice on there, right? But say, hey, if I send you a feedback change request, can you remove it? And the reason is it's my business, it's my small business, and feedback. It's really important that I get all good feedbacks to sell and everything. 99% of the time they'll say yes, absolutely, that's no problem. Yeah, I'll do it, and I'll send it in a story. It's over. Now, I've had that feedback change request sent. They don't get the email, or it goes to their spam, or they're just lazy and they don't do it right. I'll call them back up next day. Hey, John, and I'll go ahead and make sure I do what I promise. I'll go ahead and give them the 30% refund on PayPal or managed payments or whatever. I'll go ahead and do my part and say, man, can you please get that negative removed? I sent you. And they're like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'm like, can you go on your email right now and do it? People are looking at my listings and they're seeing my negative feedback, right? Never get angry, never be hostile, and a lot of times they'll remove it right there. I've had to call people sometimes, a couple, like 3 or 4 times. I had one that expired because I think you got like 7 to 10 days, or that feedback change request will expire. Okay, if that's the case, then I'll call up eBay and I'll get it documented from messages, because I'll send the buyer a message, and I'll get it documented, and I'll call eBay and say, hey, it's documented here. He wants it removed. He's happy with it, and then I'll get it removed that way. So, that's what I have to do sometimes to get these things removed. Let's see here. Now, here's the drawback of it. And some people, this is their thing that they would have against me with this package note, and then calling them up. It's not documented on eBay. It's not documented at all. And I know Crazy New York Driver here on YouTube says, hey, he wants everything documented. Don't you call me, you put it in. And I respect that. And it's not documented. They can promise you something and there's no record of it, right? They can tell you they're going to get the negative removed. There's no documentation. And I will agree, it's your word against them. But there's something more powerful than to get their voice online. It's more powerful than legal documents or whatever is not documented. So trust me on that. Now, here's another thing I do is I offer free returns. And the reason I do that is because a lot of my items are small items that I put these package notes in. They're like in little small manila envelopes. That's, I ship, standard mail. It's like $3, right? And so it's not a big deal for me if I have to pay for their return shipment. but I automatically do that on all my items because I think that saves me a lot of headache, and I think it saves me a lot of negative feedbacks by offering free returns. I feel like at the end of the day, I win out. I come out pretty much even or a little bit ahead because if you offer free returns and you qualify, you get that 10% discount on commissions, on eBay commissions. And so the money that I save from that helps me to pay for those return shipments back to me. Okay, but I think that's helped me to keep negs away. I understand if you're shipping out a bowling ball that you don't want to offer free returns, right? Because they're like, I don't like it, and I'm shipping it back. It's going to cost you 40 bucks. I understand that. I understand you have to take your risks and not do that for that, not get your 10%, but I do. Um, Now, here's the thing: if you try to call them and you can't get a hold of them, send them a nice message. Send them a message and say, hey, uh, I'm so sorry what happened. What can I do to make it right? And then I'll put a nice little message on there. Now, what you're doing with that is you're trying to bait that word feedback. You're trying to bait for that word. If they say that word, you got them. You get that negative feedback removed. You immediately, I don't care what context or what sentence they use that word feedback in, if they say that word feedback, it's considered feedback extortion. So you immediately call up eBay, say, hey, this guy's trying to extort me. If they say, no, this is not feedback extortion, bull, they cannot use that word feedback. Don't you use it first, because if you use it first, then they have a right to use that word feedback. So don't you say feedback in your messages. Keep that off of your tongue, because once you use it, they're free to use it, and it's not considered extortion. You want them to say it first, right? So once they do it, you call up eBay. If you get a rep that doesn't agree with you, hang up, call an hour later. Feedback extortion. And then most likely you'll get it removed. You might have to call at a different time zone to get a different part of the world. Philippines, I think, is the call center. They'll get it removed. But you call back until you get it removed, because they cannot use the word feedback. So that's what you're trying to get from, right? I hate when that happens because I want to get them on the phone. I want to get them on the phone. But that's not always the case. And just really profusely apologize, offer your 30% discount, blah, 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 blah. And then say, hey, by the way, after that, if they agree to it, say, by the way, can you remove the negative? Can I send you a request? Don't send them a request first. If you send them the request first, then they'll be like, then your time is running out because you have like 7 to 10 days and it's out. You want them to agree to it first, so you hold it back. And once they agree to it, then you send it. So you start with a fresh clock. So so make sure you wait until they say something. Now, also too, keep cognizant that you only have in a calendar year, you only have 5 negs that you can get removed. 5 feedback change requests. After the 5th one, if you got a 6th one, it won't work, right? And so most years I've gone up to 5, and I had to do work to get the other ones removed, right? Because I've had so many negatives removed. If it's a neutral, don't worry about it. Neutrals are fine. I'll take 100 neutrals over a negative. I'll take 1,000 neutrals over a negative. I'm fine with neutrals, because if you get that change request on a neutral, that counts against your 5, right? So don't worry about a neutral. Just keep it. And even if they ask if you want it removed, don't get it removed. It'll count against you on your 5 a year. Okay. I've had over 5 several years, and I called the seller, and they've documented it through their eBay messages, like, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this, and what have you. And then I've called up eBay, and I've literally had to have the customer call up eBay themselves, the buyer. And that's not easy to do, guys, to get them to call customer service and ask them to have it removed after the 5 have already been used out. And usually eBay will get it removed if the customer calls. Sometimes eBay rep will call, whatever. Now, that's going to get the majority of your negs removed. It's got all my negs removed. If for whatever reason they just don't like the item and they leave you an egg and they're stubborn, and that's what happened with me before the 5 years that I had all of them removed. I sold like a converter, and the software was scratched, and I tried to do the calling thing. I called literally 2 or 3 times. They wouldn't answer. And the guy called, he actually was a doctor. He messaged me back. He's like, "Don't you call me again." And that was it. I didn't mess with him again. And I kept that negative all year, and I hated looking at it. But I was like, you know what? I got a negative, but if I get another one, it's not as bad because it still is going to show 99.9%, right? But you know, that's why I'm always nice. I've never gotten in trouble. I've never had a customer upset that I called them at their home. I always call at respectful times, during the day. I never call past, 6 p.m. when they're having dinner or whatever, or at night or whatever. I look at their time zone, make sure I'm calling at appropriate times. If they say don't call me again, I will not call them again. So I've never gotten in trouble with it. And eBay gives us that phone number to communicate with them because eBay wants you to communicate with your buyer. They want you to get things resolved yourself. They don't want it to go to the eBay resolutions department. They would rather you take care of it with the buyer yourself. So those are those have been my methods, and they've worked every single time. Like I said, if all those don't work, call up eBay and just say, hey, can you, I feel like the listing was right. You see all my pictures. Can you remove the negative feedback? Now, their policy really is not to do that. And once you get to that point, it's pretty bad that you'll be able to get it removed, right? But a lot of times you will. If you don't get it, and if you know that the eBay rep is not going to work with you, be very, very polite because they're in customer service. It's a hard job, and they can push little levers to hurt you somehow. Um, so you're very nice to say, oh, by the way, I got a phone call. I'm sorry. I'll call back. So you don't want them to put any notes right in their system. You call back at another time, like maybe 6 hours later. You try again. If it doesn't work, go to the next day or the next day. After 4 or 5 times, it's time to hang it up and just be okay with getting a negative. It's not the end of the world. People get negs all the time. It won't hurt your sales that much. And but those are sure-proof ways to help you from not getting any negs. And I hope I helped you. Make sure you subscribe for more videos like this. See ya.